I'll say it now. We could end up having our best chat before we actually record. And then like, anyway, hello, Ben. How are you?
Hey, Fizz. Good to speak. Glad we managed to get the daylight savings time thing worked
Yes.
out. There's always this awkward period in spring and autumn when the US changes clocks at a different time from Europe. So for the next 2 weeks, everything in my calendar has just either moved around or stayed the same. So all my meetings now clash. It's a nightmare.
I'll tell you something interesting. My wife is always like, you tell me that you're surrounded by really, really smart people, but no one can ever seem to get the time right. So how bright can they really be? And I'm like, maybe it's me. I'm the problem. I don't do times very well.
It is one of the biggest challenges of this remote environment. One of my favorite memes is a picture, days since last time zone incident, -1.
That's awesome. I have today is March 14th, and we are going to chat about week in Eth2, our news. What's new in Eth2 for, what is this, episode 89? Did you see how I just mixed yours and Evan's newsletter, week in Eth2?
I'm flattered.
Sorry. Let me see if I can share a screen.
Yeah, remember to make the font big this time.
I did. I'm on it. Look at that.
Nice.
I even installed a frame separator plugin so that I could focus on the primary frame. So I'm
beautiful.
Moving up in the world. Sorry, I'm just zipped way down here. So much going on, and I'm so excited because the merge is really, we're gonna get into it. So I won't go too far. So Marius' thread on testing the merge. So exciting. Do you have thoughts on the merge right now?
It's happening. I mean, this is extraordinary. The only thing now between us and merge is testing. So, and we really need to test the life out of this thing. Every conceivable scenario, every corner case, every load rate on it, every security issue. You know, we've got to really give it a huge effort. Putting the beacon chain up till now, the beacon chain's been this separate thing, right? I mean, we'll probably talk in a minute. It's got like $27 billion worth of value on it, but it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. Actually re-engineering the consensus protocol of decentralized finance and the NFT ecosystem and, you know, the global settlement layer, that's a bit scary. So yeah, we need to do a good job on this.
I'll tell you, one of the things that has me a little confused is the actual schedule of what schedule implies timing, but the order of testnets that will be upgraded. Because at one point I saw it would be Rinkeby, Ropstein, Gurley, and then mainnet. But then we also have Sepolia, and we're doing I don't even know what Sepolia is, except I'm mining it proof of work for fun. I would love to see like even on the merge checklist, it's just like these are the things we need to do. We need to run test nets. I would love to see an ordered list of what test nets we expect to run, just so we can sort of follow through that.
Yeah, to be fair, we haven't really discussed this yet amongst devs. So yeah, I'm not really on top of that, but at some point that'll come into play.
Yeah, good. And that's usually, I guess, yeah, I'll move on. So testing the merge. Obviously, Ben and I have been doing this. I think this is our 3 or 4.
Number 4, yeah.
Number 4, we've been doing this. And you saw 1,000 views on YouTube. I don't, as I've told you privately, I don't really check YouTube stats because it ends up messing up my incentives or the way that I think about these things. So it's better for me not to know. But it is kind of cool that 1,000 people have tuned in.
Yeah, I don't know what YouTube exactly counts as a view. I think it's something like 30 seconds or something. So, you know, maybe people are not sitting there for an hour, but
I'm tempted to go check it out, but then I don't know. It always has unexpected consequences on my efforts. So we'll see.
Don't forget Gitcoin. Yeah, what are your favorite projects this time around in
Did you just
Gitcoin
ask
grants?
that? So I actually have been working on a list. So this is, people are going to expect me to talk about staking, but the things that excite me most are a project called Nifty Inc. I'm really excited that DApp node is moving toward full GUI, and so I do want to support them. Trent is doing this
Protocol Guild.
Protocol Guild, yes, that I'm really excited about. Those are I think the ones at least that I have notes of, like, hey, don't forget these. What are you looking at?
I haven't taken a look yet at this round. I shall get to it soon. Certainly Protocol Guild, I shall put in a few die into that one, and probably the usual suspects. I mean, I focus the effort on the Eth2, as I frame it. Projects generally, there are just so many, and it takes so long to go through everything that I pick out a dozen or so, which are ones I feel a personal connection with. Try and find one or two that are not so well supported, and give them a bit of a like, as it were. But yeah, you could spend weeks in there digging around. There's so much. It's a huge success.
I saw, I think, 750 projects, which I think is the right number, because you could filter through those and find what you're interested in, but it's not so many that you could never really get a mental grasp on it. So yeah, I do 20 is always my goal. Like, I want to fill up one cart, and I don't have a ton to give, but it is that time I like kind of encourage myself to stretch a little bit. So.
Well, it's a matching, isn't it? Which is the cool bit. Yeah, and I think it's right. I mean, I think you don't. People will come with their own interest and their own things that they, perspective on what the projects are and which are the meaningful ones. And that's kind of how it ought to be. That's how this quadratic matching thing is designed to work, right? To surface the stuff which more people are offering support for, and they show the support by a kind of a token. It doesn't have to be large, 1 DAI, 10 DAI, or USDC or whatever. But that registers your interest, and then this quadratic thing really measures aggregates that interest very nicely.
We've been telling people for so long, your vote matters, and in so many cases, your vote really doesn't matter. Like, and that's not to diminish the value of voting, but in many cases, people's votes don't really sway the situation. But we know that with Gitcoin, tiny votes, a DAI or 5 DAI can make a huge impact. I know Poapathon is one of the projects that I'm interested in. I think that Tap from Poapathon said that they were getting matched at, this sounds wrong in my head, but 290 DAI for every DAI that's donated. Yeah. And I'm like, that's incredible.
That works until the matching funds run out. So later on in the process, they'll find that goes down, and so the whole calculation is done right at the end. So it looks spectacular at the beginning, but if you get a good number of early votes in, then it looks spectacular. But to set expectations, when the final, assuming all the matching funds get used up, when the final reckoning is done, it won't be that much.
Yeah, you're right. I think I bought into the early hype, and I have done this many, many times, but just seeing that potential is so exciting. 10 million ETH on the Beacon chain, and this is staked, like actually on the
contract. Yeah, so 10 million in the contract. It may have gone to 10 million live now. I haven't checked. If you want to throw up a Beacon chain, we can. Take a look.
Yes, sir. 10. Well, okay, so we need to actually go to Beacon chain, not.
Oh yeah, staked Ether, 10,006,574.
Look at that.
Beautiful.
And you actually you hinted at the significance of this. That was, well, you talk about it early on, the modeling. 10 million was imagined to be an early kind of like, this is what we think is likely to happen.
Yeah, you can see in some of the design documents when we were sort of throwing around Beacon chain designs originally, that as a finger in the air sort of number, you've just gone past it. It's towards the top. You can see just that paragraph there. Yeah, sort of a modeling assumption of around 10 million Ether, or 10% of all Ether, which is slightly over 10 million, was our sort of, when we were sizing the data structures or trying to work out how how things might go. That's the sort of number we had in mind. Fizz has vanished, so I'll just keep talking. And,
my wife just brought my smoothie, and she
nice.
resists being on camera.
You're a lucky boy.
I am.
So yeah, we had to have some idea of how many messages will be going around the network. Is it feasible? And so coming up with a finger in the air number and sort of basing, the return is about 5.5% in protocol on that amount staked, and that felt about right in terms of risk-free returns on assets generally. So it doesn't mean we're going to stop at 10 million. It looks like we've got momentum to go somewhat beyond that. Yeah, the number keeps going up and to the right.
The big success here is we're doing it right. Like, from my perspective as a community organizer, I'm consistently worried about the complexity of staking. And I'm always, begging, can we lower that standard so that more people can stake solo or can get in? But having 10 million each staked, we must be doing something right. And so now the question is, like, how decentralized are those 10 million? But even those metrics look really good. So I'm very proud of everybody's work. We're doing it right.
Yeah, that's cool. And this is a security parameter of the network, right? So this is directly related to the cost of effectively forking the network or rewriting the history of the network. So a third of that, so 3.3 million ETH is the cost of breaking finalization on the network. And
then if that does happen, social consensus just rewrites it and you're broke. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not that I ever want to rely on social consensus, but it is a good final backstop there. I wanted to talk about this, the 99.7%, because I know it is a metric that, so we're at 99.7 percent there. And this gets me back to Rated, rated.network. And I love what Rated is doing to, like, measure efficiency of operators. But I wonder if our target here is 100% or if our target is just good enough. Because with good enough, we have some weaker validators who may not always be up. We have remote locations who may have lost connection, but we may also have that additional robustness. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? The protocol itself isn't very opinionated about this. I mean, as long as checkpoints are getting finalized, then it doesn't really matter if we've got like 70% participation or 99% participation. So, and you're right, that margin, built-in engineering margin, is there for instances when the network is not performing particularly well, to accommodate lower performance validators, people being offline for maintenance, bugs in clients. There's a safety margin in the protocol there. Maybe it's indicating that we can, for example, speed up the block time from 12 seconds to something faster. That would be interesting. Clearly, the network is very comfortable at 12 seconds. But on the other hand, we are about to make a massive change to the network, and I'd want to kind of do the merge and then monitor it for a year or so before doing anything drastic like that. Or it may indicate that actually it's dominated by big players who've got high capacity bandwidth between data centers, and actually the network's actually dominated by people who are able to maintain very good connectivity, which would not be so great for decentralization.
Yeah, I feel like it's fair to guess, based on ChainSafe's nodewatch.io in combination with the known addresses, that the network is about 37% individual validators, which I find impressive. You don't find that many individual proof of work stakers. So 37% is strong. It could be stronger, but
I'm encouraged by that. So and those 37% are doing superbly well, which is incredible. Yeah.
I didn't read this, but I was curious about it. Secured number 2, public vulnerability disclosures.
Yeah. So this has been going on in the background for quite a while. So the Ethereum Foundation they run a bug bounty thing. They occasionally commission audits, and they just generally document client and protocol issues. And this is the sort of first public disclosure of that. And you can look at the repo if you click on the disclosures repository link in the middle. Yeah, you can go there, and if you go to disclosures at the top, the folder. Oh yeah, there you go. You can go there. And consensus layer. I always have to think twice. Is that what I'm working on?
Which one are we? Yeah, same.
And it's a big table, and you can't see it all. You need to scroll across to see the sort of severity and things. But
I see. I don't have a scroll bar for that.
yeah, it's down the bottom. But there you go. And there are links to the issues and the fixes in some cases, and the dates and so on.
Wow, I wish I had looked at this. Now I'll have to go back and check it out. That is, I did not expect. I expected maybe 8 or 12 vulnerabilities. This is pretty impressive.
And a lot of these are sort of noise level. I mean, they are so theoretical as to be completely negligible. But for completeness, it's important that we had an off by one issue in Teku when we were doing aggregation, validation of signatures using Vitalik's funky method, where you can do a multiple validation of signatures, and that meant that there was an infinitesimal chance, of like 100 decimal digits chance of choosing 0 as one of the coefficients, which means the method doesn't work. Or no, it doesn't mean that. It means the method's insecure. So not only do we have to have that, something else, but that's in there, right? It's technically a vulnerability.
I would love to see this sortable by category, because I would want to sort by severity and by payout.
Yeah. I tried to do that. I tried to cut and paste it into a spreadsheet, but it all turned into a mess. So I didn't.
Still
didn't
a
succeed.
very good document.
Yeah.
Let me close tabs.
Yeah, and I think this transparency is important. I mean, when you're in the midst of a security incident, working on open source software is really hard to manage, right? Because you can't guarantee that everything's transparent, and you can't guarantee that people will upgrade immediately. So somehow you've got to fix the issue, you've got to get it to users, they've got to upgrade, and at some stage you can disclose, okay, this is what happened. And of course everybody can see it, right? So they can do a diff on your release, and they can sort of identify where the issue is,
backtrack it really quick.
Reverse engineer it. So managing it, this is tricky. I'm not going to kind of spill any secret sauce here, but you can imagine kind of the sort of things we do on that. But I think this transparency, even if it is post facto, is really important.
Yeah, and as for end users, the result of that is when a release is cut by an implementation or by a client, your obligation, your responsibility is to implement that as quickly as possible, not to say, hey, I want to see if there are any regressions, or I want to see if, how everyone else takes this. Because if it's a security patch, then as soon as the code is publicly released, people will begin reverse engineering that to attack it, and it's best to get it updated quickly.
And we flag our releases required or optional, and required covers a whole range of stuff. A lot of stuff is not security, but it might be a backwards incompatibility or something, or it might be such a major optimization which really is significant. So if you see a required release, at least of Teku, and I think the other clients do something similar, just install it, don't ask questions, just get it done ASAP, because there is a chance that it covers a security vulnerability.
So I mentioned you here. I loved. I don't know what would happen if I tried to play this, but I was very. So this is my 5 indicators the merge will happen in June 2022, and I should caveat. These are indicators, and obviously everyone is moving as quickly as they can. This is not. I wouldn't call this even a prediction, because really the intention of it is to kind of align the community to expect the merge in June. Because if we begin expecting it in October or November or December, then that sort of you know, reduces our tenacity toward that goal. So let's see. Danny answered. Go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree that I call it a planning goal.
Mhm.
It's not a deadline. We shouldn't think of it as a deadline. If we don't hit June, we haven't missed the deadline. We've just, taken a view that it wasn't the right timing. But as a planning goal to focus everybody's minds, this is what we did for the initial beacon chain launch, right? Yeah, there came a point where Danny just kind of rang around all the teams and said, right, December the 1st, good for you. And we said,
Yeah.
right. And then that was not set in stone, but that was the date, and everyone just pulled out all the stops to hit that date. We haven't quite got to that point with the merge. We haven't sort of said, okay, the date is like June 30th or whatever, but at some point in the next month or so, I imagine we will do that.
So June is a fair target. That doesn't mean it's going to happen in June, obviously. We just said that 10 times. Sorry. Let's see. DevNet 5. I saw that, but I didn't really follow it closely.
Yeah, I think the Ethereum Foundation's been largely kind of running the DevNets that we've been doing. Parry is incredible. I mean, he's a DevOps genius and has just automated everything, and can spin these things up apparently effortlessly. I'm sure he's paddling like fury in the background, but so what I was slightly surprised by is we put back the launch of Kiln as a public testnet by 10 days or so, and that wasn't sort of flagged or discussed. We'd agreed something a bit different at the previous devs call. We discussed it on the last devs call, and it was just the thinking was that clients weren't well documented or didn't have the nice, easy to use options in a release. So just to give a bit more time for client teams to catch up. Shouldn't delay anything. We tested all the technical stuff and merged DevNet 5, so all the changes, technical changes were tested then. So
as I kind of suggested in my tea leaves, the fact that you're counting days means that it's budgeted, and that the intention is to stay within the budget. So that in itself is very exciting.
Yeah, not strictly budgeted. In we've got n days, and now we've got n-10. But it's sort of like we had this experience with the Altair fork that it was scheduled sort of kind of not hard schedule, but it was loosely scheduled for late June-ish, and we ended up delivering in October, and it wasn't one big thing that tripped us up. It was just an accumulation of small delays of a week here and a week there. So I'm a little sensitive to it. So that's why I brought it up on the last devs call. But Danny gave a good answer. Yeah,
I appreciate that that you're keeping track of that. It makes me happy. So we're talking about Kiln. Kiln is running right now both as both as a beacon chain and as a execution layer chain. You can go to kiln.themerge.dev. There are a bunch of walkthrough guides. I think we're going to chat about those in a moment. And so I know that the current plan is for the merge to happen around Wednesday. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, that's kind of what it's looking like. It's hard to tell, right? So we had this little drama just before the weekend. So there are 3 events in the life of a testnet like this, right? There's a proof of work genesis, so you kick off the proof of work chain. There's a beacon chain genesis, so you kick that off. It's a different process. So proof of work genesis happened last Thursday, beacon chain genesis on Friday, and then the merge event. Now you're not in control of that. That happens when it happens, when the proof of work chain achieves a certain total difficulty. That's the amount of work that's been done on the chain. And Marius and Parry kind of set the criteria for that at a certain value, and with the understanding they would be the ones mining it, with CPU mining. So it would take maybe 5 days, 4 or 5 days to reach that terminal total difficulty. Meanwhile, somebody jumped on and started proof of work mining the proof of work chain with GPUs, which dramatically accelerates the difficulty rise. Wondering about you, Fizz. Did you
No,
jump on? No.
Sepolia only.
And which meant that the merge event was likely to be brought forward like by 3-4 days. Might have happened Saturday or Sunday. And Maris just needs a weekend off. I mean, it's not a big deal because there's so little mining being done on the proof of work chain. It's very sensitive if people bring more hash power onto it, so it can change the timing dramatically. On mainnet won't be an issue because there's so much hash power that people bringing on a bit more is just a few more percent. So yeah, it's just about saving Maris's weekend.
That did seem innocent because they apparently turned off their GPU. So
well, now we've got the opposite problem. So
yeah,
so we very quickly did an override on the terminal total difficulty by a factor of 20 to delay it into midweek this week. And that exposed some issues in clients. Teku, we botched the override facility, so we fixed that quickly. But anyways, you can override the terminal total difficulty, and it's a sort of emergency provision in case, during the real merge event, we need to do an emergency merge or we need to delay or something, we can override the number. So it was a good test of that, and we failed, but it's fixed now. But now the GPU miner's dropped off. Now what do we do? It might take weeks to reach that. So this is one reason.
So difficult to calculate, because if you ask for help, like, hey, if you have some GPUs, can you point them here? And then you end up with 80,000 cards.
I know. It's bonkers. And this kind of thing with proof of work, all these uncertain fork timings and things, all that'll be gone post-merge. We'll know exactly when things happen because we have this 12-second heartbeat, which is wonderful.
I do want to say that ETHStaker is planning to do a live launch call of that merge, the Kiln testnet merge. Very excited about that. Our attention has been scattered, and we usually plan best based on a specific date. So we're going to try and pull this together, which really means we're going to try and get a POAP together and get the right people in the room at the right time. But I'm hoping that'll be sometime Wednesday. And so just look out. We'll be announcing that as soon as it's hard to announce, but we'll be announcing the plan to announce it as soon as we're able to.
Yeah, it'll be a sort of like a flash mob event. You'll put out a tweet and say, right, it's happening, 5 minutes.
Or a GPU just dropped off. It's going to be another 2 hours. I don't know.
I'll join if I can.
We got a couple guides out here, and I'm glad that you pointed out something about these guides. So Remy Roy and I did a walkthrough video guide of his merge testnet, which was great. It's very easy to follow. Terrence did instructions for Prism and Geth. Accidental Green did Teku and Geth, and Chris Hobcroft also did Teku and Geth. The thing that we're missing here is execution layer diversity, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yep.
I'm becoming more and more willing to just start testing with Besu as a default. It seems to make sense.
Yeah, and I think Nethermind is also up to it. Aragon have committed, I think, now to being ready for the merge. So looking good. We should have 4 consensus and 4 execution clients sort of fully production ready for the event, which will be a good number. But yeah, Geth is so dominant. Yeah, Besu is making good progress.
And obviously, if you want to get involved there, you can go to kiln.themerge.dev.
Yeah, I forgot to put that link in, didn't I?
And that's fine. And this is where you can see the total terminal difficulty change. But yeah, these links will get you started, as well as these walkthroughs. And so to back up, you still have 2 days to be a part of the merge. Well, if your validator gets onboarded onto the beacon chain in time. So if you're seeing this Monday, you probably, if you want to be a part of the merge, you probably want to get your validator running as quickly as you can if you want to be a part of the merge.
Yeah, and post-merge is also really important to test everything as well. So there's certainly value in waiting a while. We will get out a Teku release in the next day or so with all of the options, minus minus network equals Kiln, and so you don't have to do any messing about. It's all straightforward, and yeah, at the moment you have to build it yourself. We use our sort of developed Docker image, but we'll get a full release out, and that will fully support Kiln configurations.
Sure. And very exciting, we have names now. Ethereum Cat Herders named the execution layer fork Paris, and the consensus layer fork is going to be called Bellatrix.
Right. Yeah, so these are the sort of pre-merge upgrades on the execution side and the consensus side. So, we'll to make them fork aware, as we discussed, just now. They need upgrades, and then the merge event happens later. So it's a sort of third phase of that.
I'm really looking forward to seeing memes that incorporate Paris and Bellatrix. Like, I don't know what that might look like, but I just feel the potential in my gut.
I'm sure there's some geniuses out there who can come up with some good stuff.
I am slacking so much on withdrawals. Like, it seems so far away in my mind that I haven't really given it much attention. What does Alex's metaspec say?
Yeah, it just pulls things together. I was finding it a bit hard to track all the different bits popping up. I'm super happy that Alex Stokes has kind of taken leadership on this. Things make progress when somebody just takes something and runs with it and owns it. And we've seen that time and time again. And it seems like Alex has stepped up for withdrawals. So he's just brought together the various docs and written a nice gloss on the flow. And the idea is that it will be initiated on the consensus layer. So if you're running a validator, if you want to do a partial withdrawal of your running validator, or you want to exit and do a full withdrawal of your whole stake and rewards, those will be options. So you'll send a message on the consensus layer, which will be similar to a voluntary exit message. It will specify an ETH1 address, an Ethereum address, where you want your funds to go. That will be dealt with on the consensus layer. So there'll be, it will find its way, that a receipt will be issued when a node kind of acknowledges that you want to do this withdrawal. The receipts will find their way into beacon blocks. The beacon node will instruct the execution layer node, the ETH1 node, to do the update to the balances. So it sort of all hangs together and will be initiated on the consensus side.
Very interesting. Yeah, I have been curious, but I haven't delved into it. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'll need to read this today.
Yeah, there are sort of complexities in there, but Alex is kind of making it all nice. So yeah,
I learned. I went from 0 to about 30% understanding there, so I'm very happy with. Thank you. Kurtosis Workshop, a platform for doing development and testing distributed systems.
Yeah, this is nice. This came out of the Avalanche community. I think they commissioned this Kurtosis company to build tooling for them, and now these guys are going around sort of shilling their wares to other blockchains, and among them is Ethereum and Eth2, and it is a framework for spinning up complex test nets. There's a lot of sort of scripting in Go required, as I understand it, but it's useful for doing CI for client developers. So in our continuous, I can't remember what the I stands for.
Integration, I believe.
Integration, that's the one. Thank you. In our CI environments, we can put a pull request in, and then it will spin up nodes and check that nothing breaks. So it's useful DevOps stuff. Yeah, and this stuff looks good. They've been very receptive. Our team's been talking to them. They're making some changes as a result. It's been it seems to be a good thing.
Cool. Very exciting. This is stuff I'm into. Lido, very interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what to say? I am intrigued by Lido's commitment to move to trustless staking. I think this is, I mean, I think it's A, impressive, but also B, a necessity. I mean, they are so dominant in staking that it's almost they have to do this. And so I hadn't heard anything for a while. So I think this came out of our last chat, actually, Fizz. So we discussed something like this, and I thought, oh, I'll ping them and see what's going on. So got an update from Izzy, and I mean the update is coming, but not soon. So they've made some steps in the direction of trying to diversify their node operator. That's the NO base. And some other bits and pieces, but really it's sort of merge first, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
And then there are some quite big gaps between where they are and where they want to be in terms of decentralized infrastructure. So some will be filled with distributed validator technology and so on, but that's not mature yet. So it's a sort of bit of a holding reply, but that's okay. It's still on their minds. They're still working towards it. There are things going on. They haven't forgotten about it and gone on and done something completely different.
I do love this commitment to depermissioning the registry. That is for me, that is a big goal, because if you have only permissioned operators, then you're really a centralizing force. But if you have a fully depermissioned base of operators, then you're really creating a decentralized network or promoting a decentralized platform. So my struggle is, like, I want to see movement and not just language. And that's, kind of one of the things, you ask for something and you get, well, this is what we're going to do in the future. But I do align with Lido, and I believe that they are truly working toward these goals. And also Izzy, who I've known for a while as Freeborn, is really committed to these goals. I would just love to see them start happening.
Yeah. And it's a hard problem. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, Rocket Pool took like 3-4 years to kind of come up with their solution, and came into the Beacon chain a year after it launched. So they've done a huge amount of work to achieve something similar. So it is not an easy problem. Decentralization is hard, but yeah, I mean, interestingly, I was speaking with a colleague in Russia, looking to emigrate, can't take money with him. Crypto is the answer. And he said to me, he's been working on this stuff for years. And he said he never thought he'd see the day when the technology became not just a technology to him, but a necessity.
Useful. Yeah.
A necessity. I mean, a game changer for him. So, decentralization theater. I think it's actually decentralization is becoming a critical thing for us. We need to just keep pushing, call out the centralizing factors and deal with them.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because sometimes I say to myself, dude, shut up, no one cares. but when it gets to the reality of governments choosing to censor the chain, if we're not ready when that happens, then we're wasting all of our time. And I don't believe we're wasting our time.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's see. Oh, so I did a how to stake, and I really did focus here on four kind of scenarios. Solo staking is always the gold standard. If you can't solo stake, maybe you want to be a mini pool operator on Rocket Pool. Maybe you want to hold ETH if you can use MetaMask. And if none of those things work, then staking in custodial ways with your exchange is still valuable. And so people will wonder, why did I choose Rocket Pool rather than something like Lido or rather than some other platform? And it is back to this decentralization that Rocket Pool is permissionless in their node operators, so anyone can operate a node. I stand by this, and I do think that I'm guiding in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that we have a spectrum here. It's not black and white. There's a whole sort of gradient of good ways to do things. Yeah, love it. Yeah, not the ravings of a lunatic at all.
Yeah, I have these thoughts when I was running. The only thing about this that I really wanted to bring up is I feel like we should be seeding more education at lower levels so that we can later harvest those rewards in our chain. And by that, I mean, everyone seems to be hiring all the time, but I don't see a lot of evidence of people paying for education. So I really think that there's an opportunity for all of this wealth that's in Ethereum to provide scholarship, to provide quality education, so that some of those people will come and later benefit what we're doing.
Shout out for Consensus Bootcamp.
Yay!
Gotta get that. I'm branded today.
Representing.
Got my nice new swag. So.
It's a nice one.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. How is the ETH Staker educational effort? I forget what you called it. The
Ethereum Study Master.
Yeah, that's the one.
So it's stalling, but it's still, we consider it a valuable idea. We probably need to get some more development effort into it. We still value it. It just hasn't received the effort it needs. I wanted to bring up Ethereum pools, their public dashboard, which I really value. Let me find the link to it. Okay,
that's the one. Yeah.
I love this idea, but one of the things that kind of happened here is we know that the pool validators are led by Coinbase, Kraken, and Binance. The thing that's missing here is Lido.
Yeah.
And the reason Lido is missing, do you want to say it or do you want me to say it?
Well, is it because it's been broken down into the separate node operators? Yeah, and as Izzy said, there are like 20 something of them.
Yeah, it was because of I sort of pushed for no service provider to have greater than 20%, and so the response to that was, rather than, hey, Lido, let's work together at less than 20%, it was to disaggregate them by individual operators so that it no longer appears that Lido has 20%.
Yeah, okay. There's some sense to that. I mean, I've had this conversation with Lido people. They don't dictate what their operators use in terms of client or anything about their infrastructure. They facilitate, and the operators are independent. They run in their own data centers or their own networks and so on. So it's not, it's not as simple as saying, oh, it's all centralized around Lido or it's all decentralized around the individuals. It's somewhere in the middle. So yeah. you could argue it both ways.
I acknowledge that. I think the important thing is, as we're pursuing decentralization, that we're not purposely turning a blind eye to anything and saying, well, this is exempt because we don't want to deal with it. Our responsibility really is to root out decentralization and not to turn a blind eye to it. But I get the need to, or the desire to regard them differently. Let's see, I had this over here. Jim, I love Jim. Such a sharp
Jim
guy.
Is great. Yep. Yeah, so he's Testnet is in a really interesting position. So for those who don't know, very early on, before Beacon Chain launch, Jim wrote their own validator technology, which is not as hard as you might think, because actually almost 98% of the work is in the Beacon node. The validator is a really simple entity, just basically signs off on, it gets duties, and then when its time comes, it signs its duties. So validator's simple. So what they do at a Testnet is they run all the Beacon nodes, and they have a validator node which interrogates each of the Beacon nodes. So when it's time to propose a block, they get a block from each of the Beacon nodes, and then they can evaluate which Beacon node gave us the best block, best being defined as the one which will earn us the greatest rewards. And they're in a sort of almost unique position to evaluate this. They've got the very nice comparative data. It's a great article. So very nice write-up. So Vouch is their technology.
The thing that I love about this is that, and I struggled with it at first, that they don't acknowledge which beacon chain represents which node. And at first that is unnerving, until, at least from my perspective, our goal is to use all of the beacon chain nodes, all of the validator clients, and not just to pick one that we think is the best and run with that. And so the
Yeah.
overall picture here is, they all work well, and you're not going to lose by choosing any of the validator clients. You'll win
Yeah.
even better if you choose Vouch.
Well, that's the interesting thing. If you got the capacity to run multiple beacon nodes, then this is a way to leverage that to improve your income. So that's interesting. I know which one of the nodes is. One of them is Teku, and I know which one it is because Jim told me. But I'm not going to spill the beans here. One caveat which I noted in the newsletter is that this is based on Prada Testnet, which is, there are a lot of skipped blocks on Prada Testnet, which makes it quite dissimilar from the beacon chain itself at the moment, where there are barely any skip blocks. And Jim has found that the distribution and relative performance of the clients is dramatically different on the actual beacon chain.
Oh,
so
really?
I believe he's writing that up now, and we should see some interesting differences.
I've been trying to get eStaker and a Testnet together to do a demo of Vouch, because I'll confess that I wanted to install it, but I was like, I don't get all of this stuff. The configuration files were a little confusing for me. No, they weren't a little confusing. I couldn't do it. So I was like, we'll just get a Testnet to demo, and then I can learn how to install it, because the big takeaway here is running all of the beacon chains is more valuable than running any of the individuals by themselves. So hopefully that will work out at some point. Let's see. Block builder separation is kind of a very important thing. It's all the buzz.
Yeah, and I wonder if a lot of people are sleeping on this. I've been talking to Jim and others for a while around this. So the issue is that post merge, it's very likely that all blocks will be built by flashbots. I mean, I'm putting it very starkly.
Yeah.
And so validators will say to flashbots, give me a block, and then we'll propose that block. The reason for that is basically because flashbots are in a position to build the most valuable blocks. They get the juicy MEV, could be a very significant fraction of income for validators. What do alternatives look like? I could build my own blocks locally, because that will still work. There'll be a mempool and I can assemble stuff from that. But I'm not in a position to extract that MEV. I will be missing out on income. And maybe I'm cool with that. Maybe I think MEV is morally indefensible or something, and I'm okay getting lower income. But I imagine
for my solo validators, I won't be. I'll be proposing my own blocks just because of the decentralization aspect, and that it's a service, I believe. But anyway,
yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there is that, and some people might take a kind of moral view on that and say do that, but basically it otherwise becomes a centralizing vector, because if, for example, Coinbase, who do have the resources to extract MEV, are able to make more valuable blocks, then their income rate on Coinbase will go up compared to what I can get as a solo validator. And so I'll go to the centralized big operators. So that's the problem. The flashbots is a solution to this. They'll hand out blocks to anyone who asks. But the danger is they then become a centralizing factor. So a single point of failure, a potential point of censorship on the network. And today they might be all friendly and trustworthy, and we believe they're a net benefit. But tomorrow they could go rogue. Who knows?
Yeah.
And so this is worrying. Better to have 3, 4, 10 block builders on the network you can go to, and you can choose your best block, or you may have reasons to trust one entity more than another, or want to be promote diversity. So I'm put cards on table. I'm talking to Infura about being a block builder,
Oh, cool.
Infura is in a good position to do this. I'm pushing.
Yes, they are,
and
because they're going
prodding.
to lose all of that execution layer traffic. They've got another opportunity.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, they won't necessarily lose traffic, but because the mempool will still be there. I mean, most
But
people
I'm
won't,
saying
yeah.
losing a service to provide, I guess.
Right. So, Infura sees a lot of transactions, a good fraction of transactions before anyone else on the network. They're in a good position to build valuable blocks. And, for me, this is a win-win. I mean, it's a win because it diversifies the block producers on the network. So, we've got backup, we've got alternatives, which is good. And it's also good for my company. So,
yeah. So the ultimate solution to this problem is PBS. Is that correct?
So you can do this in protocol. So this is an outside protocol kind of hacked together approach that doesn't require changing the spec at all. That's what we're going with currently because nobody's got bandwidth with the merge going on to do anything more robust.
Yeah.
There are some proposals to build this in protocol, so you can have an in protocol auction, which is trustless for blocks between block producers and validators. That's quite a way off, I think, at this time, and hasn't been fully fleshed out. Requires some quite big changes, and it doesn't solve the problem that economically there's likely to be one dominant player. The one who produces best blocks, everyone will want to use their blocks, and everyone else will just drop out because they're not selling any blocks.
Okay, so I was looking at that article for a sec. Did you say flashbots will not solve the problem, or that PBS will not solve the problem?
Doing the PBS proposer builder split in protocol doesn't solve the crypto economic problem, which is that it will tend towards being one dominant player who produces the best blocks.
Interesting. So if nothing else, this is a big thing for all of us to begin just kind of mulling about and kind of keep in mind for the future decentralization of the chain.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Interesting. Elias, I saw this, but it was.
Yeah, Elias has doing some nice interviews and write-ups on various folk. He kindly did one of me a little while ago, which is fun. Good, nice, long in-depth interviews.
Cool.
So this is Luke Youngblood of Coinbase, as I note in What's New. Coinbase, he is important. Coinbase runs so many validators that decisions that Luke is making are very significant for the chain. So, it's good to know what his instincts are and what his view of where things are going and how things should run are.
Awesome. I haven't heard of the Conju testnet.
Yeah, it's been a bit stealth mode. Just to note that this is working in the execution layer on moving towards statelessness. So we have to move to using different data structures inside the EVM. Basically something called Verkle trees instead of the Merkle Patricia trie that it currently has. I wasn't aware, but Guillaume has been quietly working away, implementing this in Geth and doing proof concepts, and is running a little testnet. So
I'm so terrible here because I'm like, yeah, but can I mine it? That's sorry.
Go and talk to Guillaume. But there we go.
I skipped this and I was going to let it go, but I decided I would like to go back and catch it. Amy Castor talks about move to proof of stake in MIT's technology review.
Yeah, we're going mainstream.
Is that? Oh, I haven't read this. Oh, it's a listener also. Any takeaway from it?
Nothing that will surprise you.
Okay.
And it's mostly accurate. I mean, a couple of things are out of date, but you can't really fault journalists for that because things change all the time. So it's pretty good. It's nice to see some reasonably accurate. There's a bit of jeopardy inserted at the end, but it's all just standard journalistic stuff and basically a decent account of what we're doing.
I think if we do this 60 hours a week and we have trouble keeping up, then it's hard to fault anyone else.
Quite.
ETH implementers, I really thought I was the only one that got cut off from that. And I was like, well, I guess I'm screwed. And it turns out that none of us got it. But you were there.
I was there taking notes as usual. So yeah, thankfully we have a record for posterity of all the banter on the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing much to report on that. I mean, people can plow through that if they're interested.
Let's check all the GMs real fast.
All present and correct.
All core devs was 4th of March, and I haven't seen this at all. Did I miss anything?
It's so I don't know. At some stage we'll probably have to merge these calls into one. So because we're all core devs now.
It's all the same.
And,
yeah.
So a lot of talk on execution side, a lot of bike shedding about head, safe head, finalized head. I mean, we haven't really got time to go into the gory details now. Save that for next time.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about any of these calls is there's so much focus on Shanghai already, which and that should have been in my post up there. The fact that we are now focused on implementing Shanghai is an excellent indication that Bellatrix, or that their merge is pretty much locked up.
Yeah, devs have got nothing to do on the merge. We've done our work. It's
more test nets.
More test nets, yeah.
Lighthouse is updated, Nimbus is updated.
Yeah. You can see I'm sort of updates. Yeah, I'm running out of time at this point, and I just kind of bung everything in bullet points now. So
yeah. Ethereum academic grants round. That's a big deal for anybody who has academic ability and wants to be recognized for it. It's also a great foot in the door with the EF.
Yeah, we talked about the different approaches to academia a while back, and we some are sort of just trying to catch us out, and some are very collaborative. And I'm definitely in favor of good, strong links with academia. I think we can benefit and they can benefit. This is some really, really fascinating topics to set the big brains on.
Yeah, I've really thought about connecting with my local university to encourage them to promote blockchain education. But so far, everything I know about my local university tells me that they have a very outdated view of what we're doing. So,
oh dear.
Yeah, I live in a small town. And so OBAL Proto community is live. Great for them. Big announcement.
Yep. So distributed validator technology is coming. So SSV are building it and OBAL are building it, taking quite different approaches to bootstrapping this. But yeah. What can I say?
I'd say I'm watching, but I'm not obsessed yet. It may happen at some point.
Yeah, we have a standard now to work to implement. So I think things will accelerate.
Yeah. I found this very amusing. I don't, I wanted to say something snarky like, what happens if you collaborate? I don't know, just being silly.
Yeah, I don't collaborate. That's a problem. I spent the last 25 years of my career trying to maneuver myself into a position where I don't have to collaborate with anyone, and I finally got there. And then
you're not going back now.
And Kelvin rugs me.
Oh, I found that amusing. It's good that we'll have two different perspectives on the chain, and maybe at late one night when you've had a little too much wine, you could go look at his and he could look at yours, and you could be like, oh, I should have added that.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'm on good terms with Kelvin. I'll give him a call and we'll chat about what's best. But so he and I did a little bit of work on this Eth2 book like 2.5 years ago. Consensus was funding him, among others, and Kelvin was working on it full time. And I had access to his repo and stuff, and did some reviews and editorial stuff. But I really, when I had this itch to write this thing, and I was quite jealous of him, but I left it for 2 years. And when he started with Optimism, and then I looked at his repo, and he kind of hadn't done anything for 2 years on it. I thought, okay, coast is clear.
Yeah,
it's time. Let's dive in.
From a historical perspective, though, it's so much more valuable to have two different views of the same kind of thing than you can it gives that 3D depth to it. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. He's taking a very different approach. He's starting with the breadth first, and kind of building down, and I'm doing very much depth first. So I'm kind of finishing a topic, and when I put it out there, so BLS signatures will be going out today or tomorrow. That's everything I know on it. I've done everything, and I'm consider it basically complete, subject to just maybe some minor revisions. So I'm building it out kind of horizontally, and a deep chunk at a time, which is why it looks like it's taking forever. Whereas Kelvin's kind of gone shallow and broad, and then we'll be working down.
I'm very eager to read. I know where yours is, and I've read some sections, but I'm very eager to read more. But it's on that list of like, these are the 840 things that I want to get done today. And and my family wants to go to the park.
Don't worry about it. I mean, it's there. It's a reference for people who are working on this stuff, and really need to look up something, and just to be able to find out the background and whatever. Anyone who sits and reads it from cover to cover when that's possible is going to be quite mad.
So I just looked at the time, because you and I had talked about the time before, like how long should it take, and we agreed it would just be a walkthrough, and we would not look at the clock. An hour and 7 minutes is not bad at all.
It's probably a bit shorter. We started late, but my fault. We
that's right. We had the timing confusion. It might be right at an hour.
30 minutes at 2x speed is not too bad.
So it's great. I love the articles. Let's all remember that Wednesday is the plan for the Kiln merge. And depending on what time it is, depending what time zone everyone is in, I look forward to joining everyone for that exciting event. And don't forget to make some donations at grants round 13 on Gitcoin.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks, Viz. That was fun.
Thank you. Bye, Ben. I just have to remember how to, let's see. Bye-bye, everyone.